Imagine stepping into a future where the energy we use, well, it doesn't just power our homes, does it? It actually helps heal our planet. A world where, the sun, the wind, even the Earth's core gives us boundless clean power. Or think about this. Just 1 year saw jobs in renewable energy jump. What
Well,
was it?
it's 18%.
18%. Yeah, it's huge. Bringing the global total to 16.2 million jobs. Astonishing.
Hmm.
So this isn't just about finding cleaner electricity. It feels much bigger than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's a fundamental transformation
Yeah.
of, well, pretty much everything.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into this extraordinary story, renewable energy.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how human ingenuity is learning to harness these incredible natural forces.
Sun, wind, water, the earth itself.
Exactly. And not just to, keep the lights on, but to reshape entire economies, create millions of jobs, and really redefine our whole relationship with the planet. Let's really get into that. I mean, we're well into the 21st century now, and this call for a radical shift in how we get our energy, it feels more urgent than ever, doesn't it?
It really does. We're definitely at a pivotal moment. You just can't ignore climate change anymore or the environmental damage.
We've relied so heavily for so long on fossil fuels.
Right. Coal, oil, gas. They powered the Industrial Revolution, no doubt.
But they're finite, and the greenhouse gases.
Exactly. They've pumped massive amounts into the atmosphere, which is, warming the planet, causing all sorts of knock-on effects.
Rising sea levels, extreme weather, you see it all the time.
But the promise of renewables,
Yeah.
it's such a stark contrast, isn't it? It's genuinely hopeful.
It offers a way to, keep civilization going, keep improving lives.
Without completely wrecking the environment that we depend on for, well, everything. And I think what's really critical to grasp here is this isn't just swapping out fuel sources, like taking out coal and putting in solar.
Right, it's more fundamental.
It's much deeper. It's a massive transformation that touches everything. Economic structures, political landscapes,
Yeah.
even just our habits, how we use energy day to day.
So we're basically building a whole new energy system from the ground up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
One that's designed to be cleaned, sustainable,
Mhm.
because frankly, we have to rebalance things with the planet urgently.
And that urgency, it's underlined by that incredible fact you mentioned earlier.
Oh, the solar energy one. Yeah.
Mm.
The Earth gets hit with enough energy from the sun every single day
Every day.
to meet the entire planet's energy needs for a whole year.
Wow.
The challenge historically has always been, well, how do you actually capture that
Yeah.
and convert it efficiently on a big enough scale?
That is a profound point. And, when we talk about harnessing nature's forces, it's not like this is a new idea for humans, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Not at all.
If you look back, like, across millennia,
Mm.
human ingenuity has always been about using what nature offers, right?
Definitely.
Think about ancient sailing ships, crossing oceans, just using wind power, connecting the world.
Yeah, incredible navigation feats.
Or water wheels for centuries, grinding grain, powering early industry,
Right.
just using the flow of a river.
These were really ingenious solutions for their time, deeply connected to the local environment. They weren't crude at all.
They were the first steps, really, in this long story of adapting, innovating.
Precisely. And what we're seeing now, it's just the next kind of dramatic chapter in that same story.
Right.
Modern tech isn't just making small improvements on those old methods. It's transforming them completely into these really sophisticated, interconnected, scalable energy systems.
So it's the same thread of ingenuity, but faster and
Right.
with higher stakes.
Exactly. Continuous story, but with this new urgency and on a scale that was, frankly, unimaginable before. It's a real paradigm shift.
Okay, speaking of that ingenuity, let's zoom in. Let's look at some of these key technologies that are really driving this change. First up, maybe the most obvious one, solar power. The silent powerhouse. When you really think about the sun being the ultimate power source for our whole solar system,
Yeah, and puts it in perspective.
delivering enough energy daily to power the globe for a year, the potential is just immense. But how did we get from, sunshine to solar panels on roofs? What was that scientific journey like?
It's a fascinating story, actually. A lot of persistent research. It really kicked off in the 1950s at Bell Labs.
Bell Labs, okay.
Yeah, scientists there developed the first practical silicon solar cells. They figured out the physics, the photovoltaic effect.
Can you break that down?
Sure. Basically, sunlight is made of photons, tiny packets of energy. When these photons hit certain materials, like silicon, they knock electrons loose from their atoms. If you create a path, those electrons flow, and that flow is an electric current.
Simple as that. Well, not simple to figure out, I guess.
Not simple to figure out, no. And those first cells, they were really expensive and honestly pretty inefficient,
How inefficient.
like converting maybe only a few percent of the sunlight into electricity.
Mm.
But crucially, they proved the concept worked. That was the breakthrough. It opened the door.
Okay, so proof of concept. But that's a long way from covering rooftops everywhere. What really pushed solar forward? What was the tipping point?
Well, interestingly, it wasn't necessarily one single huge scientific lead after that. It was more about world events, geopolitics, and growing awareness.
Like what?
The oil crisis in the 1970s, that was a massive wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
Showed how vulnerable we were relying on fossil fuel.
Right, the oil shocks. I remember hearing about those.
Exactly. And that, combined with this growing environmental movement worldwide,
Yeah.
people started thinking, there has to be a better way.
So necessity driving invention.
Pretty much. It led to renewed interest and, really importantly, serious government investment in solar R&D.
Ah, the funding.
Yeah. That allowed companies and labs to really innovate, make the cells more efficient, and crucially, figure out how to manufacture them much, much cheaper.
And look where we are today. The impact is just staggering. It's not just growing, it's exploding, isn't it?
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Solar power is by far the fastest growing electricity source globally right now.
And the cost. That stat is mind-blowing.
The cost of panels. Yeah, it's fallen over 90% just since 2010.
90%.
90%. That makes it cheaper than coal or gas in many, many parts of the world. Often the absolute cheapest option.
That changes everything. It's not just an environmental choice anymore, it's the economic choice.
Precisely. And it leads to this, democratization of energy. That's a powerful shift.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for the first time, individuals, small businesses, local communities, they can become energy producers, not just consumers, buying power from a big utility.
Right, putting panels on your own roof.
Exactly. It shifts power, literally and figuratively. It's a quiet reordering of things happening everywhere. And it's important to remember, solar isn't just those PV panels we see everywhere. There's also solar thermal.
Ah, right. How does that work? Is it very different?
It's a different approach. Instead of converting light directly to electricity, solar thermal uses mirrors or lenses, sometimes huge arrays of them, to concentrate sunlight.
Okay, focusing the heat.
Exactly. They focus it onto a receiver, which heats up a fluid, maybe molten salt or special oils to really high temperatures.
Yeah.
That superheated fluid is used to create steam, which then drives a turbine, just like in a traditional power plant, to generate electricity.
Okay, so it's heat driven.
Right. And beyond just electricity, that heat can be used directly for industrial processes or even for desalination, making fresh water from seawater, which is huge in sunny, dry regions.
So electricity and clean water from the same system.
Potentially, yes. And a big advantage is that they can store the heat, often in those molten salts, meaning they can keep generating power even after the sun goes down, providing dispatchable power, which is really valuable for the grid.
This incredible efficiency, the falling costs, the different approaches, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if? What if every available surface, rooftops, sure, but what about highways, building facades? What if they all became silent, efficient solar collectors, generating power right where we use it, our whole built environment becoming a massive distributed power plant?
The implications for energy independence, for making our cities more resilient, they'd be truly transformative, yeah.
Okay, so from the sun's steady energy, let's turn to something more restless. The wind. We know ancient sailors used it, millers used it, but the modern wind turbine feels like a different beast altogether. These huge, sleek machines.
Oh, absolutely. They are genuine engineering marvels. They started generating significant power, really scaling up back in the 1980s. That was another key moment.
And they're just getting bigger and more efficient, right?
Dramatically so. They're designed with incredible aerodynamic precision to capture the kinetic energy of moving air and convert it into electricity.
And the scale is just immense.
It is. The largest ones now can tower over 800 feet tall. Their blades sweep an area bigger than football fields.
Wow.
And a single one of those can power thousands of homes.
Thousands from one turbine.
Yes. And when you group them into wind farms, they can cover large areas. And what's interesting is they can often coexist with other land uses.
Like farming.
Yeah, farming, grazing. The actual footprint of the turbine base is relatively small once it's installed. Plus, wind has become one of the most cost-effective renewables. Costs keep falling thanks to better designs, materials, manufacturing.
The classic challenge with wind, like solar, is intermittency, right? The wind doesn't always blow when you flick the switch.
That's absolutely the core challenge, yes.
And what about local concerns? People worry about how they look or the noise. Those are real issues, too.
They are real issues, and they need to be
Yeah.
addressed seriously. Intermittency, though, is being tackled head-on.
How?
Well, first, wind forecasting has become incredibly sophisticated and accurate. We can predict output much better now. And second, critically, energy storage, which we'll definitely dig into more.
Okay, storage is key.
Absolutely. And for the local concern, aesthetics, noise that's being managed through better siting, placing farms more thoughtfully, often moving further offshore where the wind is stronger anyway.
Hmm.
And also, really importantly, through better community engagement, making sure local communities see tangible benefits.
That makes sense. Share the benefit.
Exactly. But here's a really cool story about wind energy resilience. You heard of the Havigavlen wind farm?
Heavy Gavlin. No, where's that?
Northern Norway, way up north. It experiences some of the most extreme, brutal wind conditions on the planet.
Really? Like how extreme?
Like early turbines there literally had rotors fly off, or the whole tower would just buckle and fall over.
Whoa, that sounds like a disaster.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But the engineers there, they saw it differently. They saw it as the ultimate testing ground, a living laboratory. They used those harsh conditions to test and refine what they call super turbine designs, learning exactly what it takes to build machines that can survive and perform in the toughest environments imaginable. It's engineering under extreme pressure.
That's incredible. Turning failure into like hyper-resilient design, it makes you think, again, that what-if question.
Totally.
What if we could build entire cities, maybe floating cities, far out at sea, dedicated wind power hubs, tapping into those incredibly strong, consistent offshore winds, away from land constraints?
That's a fascinating vision, the potential for continuous high-yield energy from advanced offshore designs like that. It's truly immense. It could be a massive part of decarbonizing our grids.
All right, next up, let's talk about the ancient giant of renewables, hydropower.
Ah, yes, hydro.
Arguably the oldest form we've used consistently, right? And still
Yeah.
remarkably the biggest source of renewable electricity worldwide.
That's correct. Still #1 globally in terms of total generation. We're talking about those huge hydroelectric dams.
Right. They harness the sheer force of falling water.
Using gravity, essentially. The water turns massive turbines, generating huge amounts of reliable power. And crucially, it's often dispatchable.
Dispatchable meaning you can turn it on and off when you need it.
Exactly. Or ramp it up and down quickly to match demand. That provides really valuable stability to the electricity grid. And it's not just about electricity. These big dams, they often serve multiple purposes.
Like what else?
Water management is a big one. Storing water for irrigation, helping with agriculture, controlling river flows to prevent downstream flooding, sometimes even enabling navigation on rivers.
So they're multitaskers.
They can be. But, and this is a really big but, we absolutely have to talk about the significant environmental and social downsides of large-scale dams.
Okay. What are the main concerns?
Well, ecologically, they can wreak havoc on river ecosystems.
Yeah.
They block fish migration routes, which is devastating for species like salmon, and impacts the whole food web.
Right, I've heard about that with salmon runs.
And socially, the impact can be enormous. Building large dams often means flooding vast areas of land, forcing entire communities to relocate, uprooting people, destroying homes, cultural heritage.
Are there prominent examples of that?
Sadly, yes. The Three Gorges Dam in China is probably the most famous. It displaced over 1 million people.
I mean,
Yeah. And another, maybe less known but really stark example, is the Balbina Dam in Brazil.
What happened there?
It flooded nearly 2,400 square kilometers of pristine Amazon rainforest, an area the size of, like, Delaware or Luxembourg.
For how much power?
That's the tragic part. Due to its design and location, it only generates about 250 megawatts. A tiny amount of power for such a colossal environmental footprint.
Wow. That's a terrible trade-off, an enormous footprint for not much energy.
It really highlights the issue. Now, you contrast that with smaller run-of-the-river projects.
How are they different?
They typically don't require a large reservoir. They use the natural flow of the river, diverting some water through turbines. A 10-megawatt run-of-the-river plant in the right spot might only use a couple of acres. Much less disruptive.
So a different approach. It raises that question about strategy, doesn't it? Big versus small.
Exactly. Should we be focusing on smaller, more integrated solutions instead of these massive ecosystem-altering projects? And there's another layer. Emissions.
Emissions from hydro, I thought it was clean.
Mostly. But it's not zero. Building the dam involves emissions, obviously. But the reservoir itself can emit greenhouse gases.
How?
When you flood large areas, especially in tropical regions or peatlands, all that submerged vegetation and soil starts to decompose underwater, anaerobically.
Without oxygen.
Right. And that process releases methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas, along with CO2. So operational emissions can be significant in some cases.
Okay, so it's complicated.
It is. Though even with those emissions, it's important to say the life cycle emissions are still generally much, much lower than fossil fuels like natural gas or coal.
So, given these complexities, these trade-offs, it makes me wonder again, what if? What if our focus shifted? What if we concentrated on making our existing dams as efficient as possible? And then for new hydro, we only developed small, carefully sited run-of-the-river projects, trying to harmonize energy with nature instead of dominating it.
That would certainly represent a more sustainable path forward for hydropower, minimizing the ecological disruption, the social upheaval, while still tapping into what can be a very reliable, dispatchable power source, especially for balancing the grid.
Okay, let's go from water to off, deep inside the Earth. Geothermal energy, tapping the Earth's inner core for power. It sounds almost like science fiction. How does it actually work?
It is pretty amazing when you think about it. Geothermal energy taps into the immense heat that's stored within the Earth's crust.
Where does that heat come from?
Two main sources, really. One is the slow, continuous radioactive decay of elements deep inside the planet, like a natural nuclear reactor running for billions of years.
Wow.
And the other is the residual heat left over from when the Earth first formed. Primordial heat.
Okay, so we've got this internal heat source. How do we use it?
Well, it can be used directly piping hot water or steam up to heat buildings or for industrial processes. That's common in places like Iceland.
Right.
Or you could use that heat, usually the steam, to drive turbines and generate electricity.
And the big advantage here is it's always on, right? It doesn't matter if it's sunny or windy or nighttime.
Exactly. That's its superpower. It's available 24/7, completely independent of weather. It provides baseload power, very stable and reliable.
And the environmental footprint.
Generally very small on the surface compared to the power output. You need the wells and the power plant, but not vast land areas like some other renewables.
Okay, sounds great. What's the catch? Why isn't it everywhere?
The main limitation, historically, has been geography. It's only really been economically feasible to tap into this heat where it's relatively close to the surface.
Like near volcanoes or hot springs?
Precisely. Areas with specific geological conditions, often along tectonic plate boundaries, that's where the heat is most accessible with current drilling tech.
But even with that limitation, there's a cool historical tidbit, isn't there?
Oh yeah, the Larderello plant. It's often forgotten.
Yeah.
But the world's first geothermal power generator was built in Larderello, Tuscany, Italy.
When was this?
Way back in 1913, over a century ago. And guess what it powered? The Central Italian Electric Railway System.
No way. Trains running on geothermal power in 1913.
Yep, an early pioneer in green transport.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. 100 years ago, it really prompts that thought.
Right.
What if? What if we develop advanced drilling techniques? Maybe borrowing from, deep oil and gas exploration, could we reach that heat almost anywhere?
That's a goal of Enhanced Geothermal Systems, or EGS. Yeah, the idea is to drill deep, potentially miles down, into hot, dry rock, then inject water to create fractures, essentially creating an artificial geothermal reservoir.
So you could potentially build a geothermal plant anywhere.
Potentially, yes. Accessing vast energy reserves virtually anywhere on Earth.
Yeah.
But the technology is still developing and making it economically viable on a massive scale. That's still a significant hurdle we need to overcome.
Okay, next on our tour of nature's power sources, biomass energy. You called it nature's recycle bin earlier. What exactly counts as biomass?
But biomass is basically any organic matter from plants or animals that has stored energy from the sun through photosynthesis. It's a really broad category.
Like what specifically?
Wood, obviously. Wood chips, sawdust, forest residues, also agricultural waste, corn stalks, rice husks, even municipal solid waste, the organic part of garbage. And then there are dedicated energy crops.
Crops grown just for energy.
Yeah, things like fast-growing grasses like switchgrass or miscanthus or certain types of trees grown specifically to be harvested for energy.
Okay, so we have this organic material. How do we get energy from it?
Two main ways. You can burn it directly, combustion, to generate heat, which can then produce steam to drive turbines for electricity. Or you can convert it through processes like gasification or anaerobic digestion into biofuels.
Biofuels like ethanol.
Yeah,
biodiesel.
exactly. Liquid or gaseous fuels that can often be used in vehicles or for other applications.
Using waste products sounds great. Very circular economy. So is biomass a truly clean, green solution, or is it more complicated?
It's definitely more complicated, and that's really important for people to understand. There are nuances.
Okay.
When it's managed properly, sourced sustainably,
Yeah.
biomass can be considered carbon neutral, at least on a life cycle basis.
How does that work?
The idea is the carbon dioxide released when you burn the biomass is roughly equal to the CO2 the plants absorbed from the atmosphere while they were growing. So in theory, it's a closed loop.
Okay, in theory, what are the catches?
Well, there are significant limitations and potential downsides we have to acknowledge. Burning biomass, especially solid biomass like wood on a large scale, releases air pollutants,
Like what?
particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide,
Hmm.
things that affect local air quality and public health. That's a real concern.
Right.
And then there's the land use issue. If you start growing huge amounts of energy crops, does that compete with food production for land and water?
Good point. Food versus fuel.
Exactly. And could it lead to deforestation or destroying natural habitats if not done really carefully?
Mm.
So you described it as the less cool sibling of renewables earlier,
Yeah, maybe a bit harsh, but
but it captures that need for caution. It requires really careful management, strict sustainability rules, full life cycle analysis to make sure it's actually beneficial overall and not causing new problems.
are there examples of it being done well?
Yes. Finland is a good example. They aim to get 30% of their electricity from biofuel by 2030. But they're primarily doing it by using byproducts from their huge, sustainably managed timber industry sawdust, wood chips, etc. That's a smart waste energy approach.
Okay, so it needs careful thought, local context, part of a bigger picture. Right, our final natural force, ocean energy. This feels like the last great frontier, doesn't it? The oceans cover so much of the planet, the potential must be enormous.
It is absolutely enormous, truly vast, and still largely untapped. It's a formidable challenge, but the resource is immense.
Where does the energy come from in the ocean?
Several forms. You've got the kinetic energy of waves driven by wind, the predictable, powerful movement of tides driven by the moon's gravity, and even the temperature difference between warm surface water and cold, deep ocean water.
Okay, so waves, tides, temperature, how are we trying to capture that? What technologies are emerging?
There's a whole range being developed. For waves, you have devices like anchored buoys or hinged rafts that move with the waves, driving pumps or generators.
Popping up and down?
Exactly. For tides, you have tidal turbines. They often look like underwater wind turbines placed in areas with strong currents, like estuaries or channels. And then there's OTEC,
OTEC.
ocean thermal energy conversion. That uses the temperature difference, maybe 20 degrees Celsius or so, between the surface and deep water to run a heat engine cycle and generate electricity. It works best in tropical regions.
What are the big plus points for ocean power? You mentioned tides are predictable.
That's
That sounds really valuable.
That's a huge advantage, especially for tidal. Unlike wind or solar, tides are incredibly predictable thanks to the moon. You know exactly when high and low tide will be years in advance. That offers amazing certainty for grid planning.
Like clockwork.
Pretty much. And another key advantage is the energy density of water. Water is about 800 times denser than air.
800 times.
Yeah. Which means even relatively slow-moving water currents pack a much bigger punch than wind at the same speed. So tidal turbines can potentially be smaller and more robust than wind turbines for the same power output.
Okay, sounds promising. What are the hurdles then? Why aren't we seeing more of it?
The main challenges are cost and durability. The technology is still relatively young and expensive to build and deploy, especially compared to mature renewables like solar and wind.
Right.
And the ocean is just a really harsh environment. Saltwater corrosion, powerful storm forces, biofouling. It puts immense stress on the equipment. Making devices that can survive and operate reliably for decades underwater is a major engineering challenge.
Still, despite those hurdles, there's a pretty impressive historical example that shows it can be done, right? That French power plant.
Ah, yes. The Rance Tidal Power Station in Brittany, France. A true pioneer.
When was that built?
It opened way back in 1966. It was the world's first large-scale tidal power plant. And incredibly, it's still operating reliably today, over half a century later.
Still going. That's amazing longevity.
It is. It generates over 500 gigawatt hours per year. And its turbines were cleverly designed to generate power on both the incoming and outgoing tides, maximizing its output.
Yeah.
It really proved the long-term viability of the concept.
That kind of long-term vision, harnessing the tides for 50 plus years, it sparks another what if. What if the vast, predictable, relentless power of the oceans? What if that became the ultimate always-on energy source for coastal cities and communities all around the world? A constant, clean heartbeat of power from the sea.
That could fundamentally change the energy equation
Hmm.
for billions of people living near coastlines, offering unparalleled energy security, resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a powerful prospect.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting, isn't it? We've talked about all these amazing ways to generate renewable energy: sun, wind, water, heat, biomass, oceans. But there's that recurring theme, especially for the big ones: solar and wind. Intermittency.
The elephant in the room sometimes.
Right. The sun goes down, the wind stops blowing or blows too hard. So it leads to the absolute core question for making this whole transition work. How do you keep the lights on 24/7? How do you provide reliable, continuous power when your main sources are variable?
That is the central challenge, the intermittency conundrum. And solving it is probably the single biggest engineering and grid management task of the entire energy transition.
Because traditional power plants, fossil fuel plants,
Yep.
you could just turn them up or down as needed, right?
Exactly. They provide a dispatchable power on demand. Solar and wind don't work like that. They generate when the resource is available. So to get to a grid that's mostly or even fully renewable, you absolutely need ways to store that energy.
Storage is the key.
It's essential. Scalable, cost-effective energy storage is the missing piece of the puzzle, the enabler. Without it, a fully renewable grid just isn't feasible.
Okay, so let's dive into the solutions then, the things that are bridging this gap. When people hear energy storage, I think most of us immediately think of batteries.
Yeah, batteries are definitely the most familiar, and they're evolving incredibly fast.
How are they being used at the big grid scale?
We're seeing huge battery installations now, often container-sized units grouped together. Sometimes they're at substations, sometimes right alongside large solar or wind farms.
What do they do?
They soak up excess electricity when generation is high but demand is low, like midday for solar. Then when demand peaks in the evening or when the wind dies down, they discharge that stored power back onto the grid.
So smoothing things out, balancing supply and demand.
Exactly. They provide grid stability, backup power, frequency regulation, all sorts of valuable services. And the costs, particularly for lithium-ion batteries, have been falling dramatically, just like solar panels.
Lithium ion is the main type.
It dominates right now, yeah.
Yeah,
Because of its energy density, how much energy it can store for its weight and size, and its cycle life.
there's always a bet.
Hey, yeah. There are environmental concerns around lithium-ion, the mining of lithium and cobalt, the manufacturing process, what happens at the end of their life.
Right, disposal and recycling.
Exactly. So there's a huge amount of research going into alternatives. Solid-state batteries, flow batteries, sodium-ion batteries, chemistries that might be cheaper, safer, longer lasting, or use more abundant, ethically sourced materials. That's a really hot area of innovation.
Okay, so batteries are crucial, but evolving. What else? Are there other ways to store energy, maybe using like physical forces?
Oh, yes. Mechanical storage is a huge player, especially for large-scale, long-duration storage. The biggest one, by far, is pumped hydro storage.
Pumped hydro, how does that work?
It's actually a pretty simple, ingenious concept. You need two reservoirs, one higher than the other, when you have excess cheap electricity on the grid.
Like overnight wind or midday solar.
Exactly. You use that power to pump water from the lower reservoir uphill to the upper reservoir. You're storing energy in the form of gravitational potential energy.
Okay, like a giant water battery.
Precisely. Then, when you need electricity, maybe during peak demand, you open the gates, let the water flow back down through turbines, and generate power.
How much storage does this account for?
Globally, pumped hydro makes up something like 95% of all grid-scale energy storage capacity right now. It's massive. It can store huge amounts of energy for hours, even days.
What's the downside?
The main limitation is geography. You need the right terrain, hills or mountains, and access to water. You can't build them just anywhere.
Got it. Any other mechanical methods?
Yes, there's also compressed air energy storage, or CAES.
Compressed air.
Yeah. You use excess electricity to run powerful compressors, which pump air at very high pressure into large underground storage areas.
Like what? Caves?
Exactly. Natural caverns, abandoned mines, salt domes. Then, when you need power, you release the compressed air, usually heat it up first to increase efficiency, and let it expand through a turbine to generate electricity.
Similar principle to pumped hydro, but with air?
Sort of, yeah. It's also capable of very large-scale, long-duration storage, again, dependent on suitable underground geology, but another important tool in the toolbox.
Okay, using gravity, using compressed air. What about storing energy as heat? or even cold. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. That's thermal energy storage, or TES. And it's becoming really important, especially linked with certain renewables.
How does TES?
It uses that excess electricity to heat up or cool down a storage medium. This could be tanks of molten salt, like we mentioned with solar thermal.
Right, storing the sun's heat.
Exactly. Or it could be large water tanks, underground rock beds, or even specialized phase change materials that absorb or release a lot of heat when they melt or freeze.
And how is that stored heat or cold used?
Well, the stored heat can be used later to generate electricity, like in concentrated solar power plants operating after sunset. Or it could be used directly for industrial process heat, or for district heating systems, warming buildings.
And the cold.
Stored cold can be used for air conditioning or refrigeration,
Hmm.
shifting cooling demand away from peak electricity hours. It's all about load leveling, smoothing out the peaks and troughs in energy supply and demand.
What are the advantages of TES?
It can offer really good grid balancing. It's often modular. You can scale it up. It can have long operating times. And it directly reduces emissions if it avoids firing up a fossil fuel peaker plant.
Any challenges?
Sure, maintaining efficiency over time can be tricky. Heat transfer can degrade. Sometimes the materials can separate. Corrosion can be an issue. Managing the flow. It requires sophisticated engineering.
It's amazing, this diversity of storage solutions, batteries, water, air, heat, and I hear there are even some really cutting-edge, kind of hybrid approaches starting to emerge.
That's right. Innovation isn't stopping. One really exciting area is supercapacitors.
Supercapacitors, what are they?
Think of them as like sprinters
Yeah.
compared to batteries being marathon runners. They can't store nearly as much total energy as a battery the same size.
Okay, limited capacity.
Right, but they have incredibly high power density. They can charge and discharge almost instantly, delivering huge bursts of power very quickly,
Faster than batteries.
much faster. And their cycle life is phenomenal. They can handle hundreds of thousands, even millions of charge-discharge cycles without degrading much way more than typical batteries.
So how would you use them?
The vision, and what's starting to happen, is using them alongside batteries in hybrid systems.
Working together?
Exactly. The supercapacitor acts like a rapid buffer. It can absorb sudden surges of power from renewables like a big gust hitting a wind farm, or provide instant power for grid stability, protecting the battery from those extreme peaks and troughs. It helps the battery perform better and last longer.
So combining the strengths of both, very clever.
It makes the whole storage system much more dynamic, responsive, and ultimately more resilient.
Okay, so we have all these different renewable sources popping up everywhere, many of them variable, and we have these increasingly sophisticated storage solutions trying to balance things out. What does this mean for the electricity grid itself? The actual network of wires and transformers? It sounds like the old grid wasn't really built for this kind of two-way variable complexity.
You've hit on a crucial point. It absolutely needs a radical overhaul. This brings us to the smart grid revolution.
Smart grid, we hear that term a lot. What does it actually mean?
Well, think about the traditional grid. It was designed for the 20th century. Big power plants, mostly far away, pushing power out one way to passive consumers. Simple, centralized, predictable flow. Right.
But now, we have solar panels on millions of roofs, wind farms scattered across the landscape, batteries storing and releasing power. It's much more distributed, dynamic, and complex. The old grid just can't handle that efficiently or reliably.
So the smart grid is the upgrade.
Exactly. It uses digital technology sensors everywhere, two-way communication networks, advanced software, even artificial intelligence to monitor and control electricity flow in real time across the entire network.
Giving the grid a brain, basically.
That's a great way to put it. This digital intelligence allows grid operators to see what's happening everywhere, predict supply and demand much more accurately, integrate all these variable renewables seamlessly, and even reroute power automatically if there's a fault.
And it's not just about the utilities managing things better, is it? It empowers us, the consumers, too.
Absolutely. That's a key part of the smart grid vision. It enables two-way communication right down to your home.
How does that help me? Well, with smart meters and smart appliances, you can get real-time information about your energy use and the price of electricity. You could program your EV to charge only when power is cheapest and greenest, maybe overnight from wind power.
Okay, more control, saving money.
Yes, and potentially earning money. If you have rooftop solar, a smart grid makes it much easier to sell your excess electricity back to the utility, turning your home from just an energy consumer into a prosumer.
A producer and consumer.
Exactly. You become an active participant in the energy system. It fundamentally changes that relationship.
It really does. It makes you think, Another what if. What if our entire global electricity grid evolved into this intelligent, adaptive organism, constantly learning, predicting, perfectly balancing supply and demand from millions of diverse, decentralized sources all over the world? What would that level of integration mean for how we live?
Wow, the implications would be profound. Think about global energy security, much less reliance on single fuel sources or choke points. Resilience against blackouts or disruptions would be massively increased, and potentially much more equitable access to clean, affordable energy for everyone. It could genuinely reshape geopolitics.
This whole energy transition, it's clearly not just about the technology, is it? It's sending these huge ripples across our economies, our societies, creating jobs, changing communities. This feels like the real human dimension of the story.
Absolutely. And the economic impact is undeniable. Renewables have become a true economic powerhouse.
We talked about the cost reductions.
Right, solar and wind are now often the cheapest options. And that affordability is driving massive market growth. Let's look at wind power specifically for a moment.
Okay,
The global market was estimated at, what, about $97 billion in 2024?
pretty big.
Yeah. And it's projected to hit over $141 billion by 2030. That's a strong, steady growth rate, nearly 5% compound annual growth. This isn't niche anymore. It's a major global industry.
That's huge growth in just 6 years. What's driving all that investment? Is it just the low cost, or are other factors at play?
Cost is a huge driver, for sure. But stable, supportive government policies are also absolutely critical.
Like what kind of policies?
Things like investment tax credits, production tax credits, basically financial incentives that make projects less risky and more profitable for developers. Also, those renewable portfolio standards we mentioned earlier, mandating utilities to buy renewable power.
Right, creating guaranteed demand.
Exactly. You see this particularly strongly in places like North America and Europe. These robust regulatory frameworks encourage huge amounts of investment, both public and private.
And that investment then fuels more innovation.
Precisely. It creates this positive feedback loop. More investment leads to better technology, bigger, more efficient turbines, cheaper solar cells, which further reduces costs, making renewables even more competitive, attracting more investment, and so on. It's a virtuous cycle.
And this economic boom translates directly into jobs, right? The green jobs boom, we touched on that staggering number earlier, 16.2 million globally in 2023.
That's right. And the increase in 2023 was the largest ever recorded in a single year, an 18% jump from 2022. That's incredibly rapid workforce growth.
Where are most of these jobs? Which sectors are leading?
Solar PV is still the biggest engine by far. It accounts for about 7.2 million jobs worldwide.
Almost half the total.
Yeah, nearly half. And a huge chunk of those 4.6 million are in China alone. China dominates manufacturing and installation, both domestically and for export.
So China's the powerhouse there.
Definitely. But it's also making Southeast Asia a major hub for producing components and doing installations, creating millions of jobs across that region too, manufacturing, installation, operations, maintenance.
Okay, so solar is number one. What comes next?
Liquid biofuels are actually the second largest employer globally, with about 2.8 million jobs.
Biofuels, really?
Primarily Brazil, with its massive sugarcane ethanol industry, and Indonesia, with palm oil biodiesel. Though, again, sustainability concerns are very relevant there.
Right, and wind power.
Wind accounts for about 1.5 million jobs globally. Again, China leads with over half those jobs, followed by Europe with around 21%. These are often high-skilled jobs in manufacturing complex turbine components, tricky installations, especially offshore, and specialized maintenance.
What about hydropower, the ancient giant?
Interestingly, direct jobs in hydro actually dipped slightly in 2023, down to about 2.3 million.
Why is that?
Mainly because the pace of building new, large dams has slowed down globally. There's still significant employment in operating and maintaining existing hydro plants, especially in countries like China, Brazil, India. But the construction boom has eased off.
So the job landscape is dynamic, shifting between technologies.
Very much so. And the types of jobs cover the whole spectrum: R&D, engineering, manufacturing, construction, installation, operations, maintenance, finance, policy.
What about geographically? Like, is this jobs boom concentrated? You mentioned China and Europe. What about places like Africa? Are they seeing benefits?
That's a really important point. Africa has immense renewable resource potential: solar, wind, geothermal. It's incredible. But currently, it receives only a very small fraction of global investment in renewables.
So fewer jobs.
Relatively speaking, yes. Around 324,000 jobs in 2023. It's growing, but it highlights a big disparity and a missed opportunity.
What's the opportunity there?
There's huge potential for decentralized renewable energy, or DRE. Things like solar home systems for individual houses, or local mini-grids for villages that aren't connected to the national grid.
Powering remote areas.
Exactly. These DRE solutions can bridge critical energy access gaps, improve lives, and create local jobs in sales, installation, maintenance, right there in the community. It needs more investment and policy support.
And thinking about the workforce itself. Yeah. Is it diverse? Is the green economy offering opportunities for everyone?
That's another critical area that needs focus. For this to be a truly just transition, policies have to actively promote diversity and equity.
How's it looking now?
Well, for example, women currently only make up about 32% of the global renewables workforce.
Less than a third.
Right. Even as the sector booms, there's a significant gender imbalance. So we need targeted efforts, education, training programs, not just to bring new people into clean energy roles, but also, really importantly, to help workers transition from declining fossil fuel industries.
Reskilling and upskilling.
Exactly. Ensuring that the benefits of this transition are shared widely and no one gets left behind. It has to be a just and sustainable transition, not just a clean one.
This leads perfectly into something really powerful. Community renewable energy, or CRE. This flips the model, doesn't it? Instead of giant, distant power plants owned by huge companies, it's about local projects with local control, local ownership.
Precisely. We're talking about small to medium-scale projects. A local wind turbine, a community solar garden where the community itself has a significant stake.
How does that ownership work?
It can take many forms. Community energy cooperatives are common, where residents buy shares. Small local businesses might develop projects. Sometimes groups of landowners pool together. The key is meaningful local control and benefit.
And what are the advantages of doing it this way? Why is CRE important?
Oh, the benefits are numerous, and they ripple through the community. Firstly, it really fosters a local culture of energy awareness and conservation. People feel connected to where their power comes from.
Right, it's tangible.
Exactly. It directly reduces local emissions. It creates high-quality, long-term jobs that stay in the community, which is huge, especially for rural areas needing economic boosts. It builds local skills and capacity.
And you mentioned it could prevent conflicts. How?
Yeah, through clever structures, like those landowner pools for wind farms we talked about briefly. Instead of just the person whose land has the turbine getting paid.
Right, causing turbine envy.
Exactly. In a pool, all the affected landowners in the area share in the revenue. It compensates everyone fairly for the visual impact or other effects, maximizes the use of the wind resource across properties, and builds collective support rather than division. Very smart.
That is a really practical, elegant solution. Can you give us some real-world examples of CRE working well?
Sure. There are great examples all over. In Toronto, Canada, there's the Rise Cooperative. They basically form community buying clubs for solar panels, using collective bargaining power to drive down installation costs for members.
Simple but effective.
Yeah. In Washington State in the U.S., there's the We Co-op, focusing on helping homeowners and farmers install small wind turbines, providing technical support and guidance.
Okay.
Germany is probably the global superstar for CRE. It's estimated that around half of all renewable energy capacity in Germany is community-owned in some form.
Half. That's incredible.
It is. Over 100,000 individuals in Germany hold direct financial stakes in wind and solar projects. That creates immense public buy-in and local economic benefits.
Any other models? Partnerships?
Yes. Partnerships are key too. Look at the Middelgrunden offshore wind farm near Copenhagen. That was a pioneering joint venture between the local utility company and a citizen-owned cooperative. Or Toronto's Windshare project, a 50-50 joint venture between a community co-op and the city's utility, Toronto Hydro. These show how collaboration can unlock bigger projects while keeping local benefits central.
It paints such a compelling picture of empowered communities. It really makes you wonder, what if every town, every village became its own mini energy hub, powered by local resources, local ingenuity, shared ownership, creating these really self-reliant, resilient communities all over the world?
That vision captures the true potential of decentralization in this energy transition. Shifting power, literally and figuratively, back to the local level, building resilience from the community up.
So we've seen the technology, the economics, the community power. But none of this happens in a vacuum, does it? Policy plays a massive role. The rules of the game.
Oh, absolutely critical. You could argue that effective policy is the essential catalyst. It's what turns potential into reality on a large scale.
How does policy achieve that? What does it actually do?
Well, good policies do several key things. They help reduce the upfront costs of renewable projects. They reduce the risk for investors, which encourages more investment. They actively spur innovation by creating markets or funding R&D. And crucially, they help level the playing field.
Leveling the playing field against fossil fuels.
Exactly. Fossil fuels have benefited from decades, even centuries, of established infrastructure, market rules, and often direct or indirect subsidies. Renewables need policies that give them a fair shot to compete, especially newer technologies.
How have these policies evolved? Have they gotten smarter over time?
Definitely. In the early days, it was often just basic grants or tax breaks just trying to get any projects built. But now policies are much more sophisticated. They address complex issues like how to integrate renewables smoothly into the grid, how to design electricity markets fairly, how to ensure long-term sustainability. It's about creating a whole supportive ecosystem.
Okay, let's look at some specific policy tools that have been really influential. Feed-in tariffs, or FETs. We hear that term a lot, especially regarding Germany's success. How do they work?
Feed-in tariffs were incredibly powerful, especially early on. The basic idea is simple. The government guarantees a fixed premium price that renewable energy producers will receive for the electricity they feed into the grid,
A guaranteed price. For how long?
usually for a long period, like 15 or 20, even 25 years. That long-term price certainty dramatically reduces the financial risk for developers and investors. They know exactly what revenue they'll get.
So it makes projects bankable.
Precisely. And that encouraged a flood of investment, particularly in solar and wind in places like Germany. This rapid scaling up then helped drive down the technology costs through economies of scale, more factories, more experience, lower unit costs. Germany's FETs essentially kick-started the global solar industry boom.
Any other examples?
Ontario, Canada had a well-known program called the Standard Offer Program, which offered specific, attractive, fixed prices per kilowatt hour for different renewable technologies, leading to significant deployment there too.
Okay, so FITs guarantee a price. What about renewable portfolio standards, or RPS? Those seem more common in the U.S. How are they different?
RPS policies work differently. They don't set a price, they set a quantity mandate. They require electricity providers, utilities, to get a certain percentage of the power they sell from eligible renewable sources by a specific deadline.
So forcing utilities to go green?
In effect, yes.
Yeah.
They create a guaranteed market demand for renewable energy. Utilities have to procure it, either by building it themselves or buying it from independent producers.
What's the impact of RPS?
They drive large-scale investment, push utilities to diversify their energy mix away from fossil fuels, and achieve significant greenhouse gas reductions across the electricity sector. California's RPS is probably the most ambitious example.
What's their target?
They're aiming for 60% renewables by 2030 and ultimately 100% clean electricity by 2045. That kind of long-term, high-ambition target really forces massive systemic change and innovation.
So we have guaranteed prices, FITs, and guaranteed demand, RPS. What other tools are in the policy toolbox? Financial incentives, market mechanisms.
Yes, lots of others. Direct financial incentives like tax credits, investment tax credits, ITCs that reduce upfront costs, or production tax credits, PTCs, that reward actual generation are still very important, especially in the U.S. Grants for research and development are vital for pushing the boundaries of technology. Low-interest loans from public green banks can also make financing easier.
And market mechanisms.
Renewable energy certificates, or RECs, are a key one there, sometimes called green certificates or tags.
How do RECs work?
Basically, when a renewable facility generates electricity, it creates two products: the physical electricity itself and a REC, which represents the green attributes of that electricity, like the fact that it was renewably generated and avoided certain emissions.
And you can sell the RECs separately.
Yes. The REC can be sold separately from the power. So a company or individual that wants to claim they're using renewable energy, but maybe can't build their own project, can buy RECs from a wind farm or solar plant. It provides an extra revenue stream for the renewable generator and allows buyers to support renewables and meet their own green goals.
Okay, so policy is clearly essential, and there are many sophisticated tools, but putting these policies into practice, it can't always be straightforward, can it? What are the big implementation headaches?
No, it's definitely not always smooth sailing. There are significant challenges. One huge one is policy stability.
Meaning?
If governments keep changing the rules, adjusting FIT rates downwards too quickly, letting tax credits expire unexpectedly, it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is toxic for long-term investment in projects that take years to plan and build and operate for decades. Developers need predictability.
Makes sense. What else?
Grid integration remains a massive technical and financial challenge. Connecting all these new, often variable renewable sources to a grid that wasn't designed for them requires huge investments in upgrading transmission lines, improving substations, and deploying that smart grid technology we talked about. It's complex and expensive.
And local opposition. NIMBLIMism.
Public acceptance is definitely a factor. Not in my backyard. Local resistance to siting wind farms or large solar parks, often due to concerns about visual impact, noise, or land use, can slow down or even completely stop projects. Community engagement and benefit sharing are key to overcoming that.
And I imagine just getting the permits to build anything must be a nightmare sometimes.
Oh, permitting can be incredibly complex and time-consuming. It's often cited as one of the biggest bottlenecks slowing down deployment.
Why is it so hard?
Because you're dealing with multiple layers of government, local, regional, national. Each has different rules. You need construction permits, siting permits, you need extensive environmental assessments, studying impacts on wildlife, noise levels, visual impact, water resources, traffic.
Wow, a lot to cover.
Absolutely. Then there are technology-specific permits like air emission permits for biomass plants or water rights for hydro. And in many places, like Canada and parts of the U.S., there's a crucial requirement for thorough consultation with Indigenous or Aboriginal groups regarding projects on or impacting their traditional territories.
That sounds like it could take years.
It often does. The good news is we're seeing a trend towards streamlining. And some companies, especially installers, are now offering to handle the entire permitting maze for the developer.
Ah, like integrated service providers, ISPs.
Exactly. They take on the burden of navigating all the permits, the environmental studies, the grid interconnection applications, which simplifies things immensely for the project developer and can really speed up the process.
That sounds like a necessary innovation in itself, simplifying the bureaucracy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, overcoming these policy and implementation hurdles requires constant adaptation, better coordination between different levels of government, and ongoing dialogue with communities. It's about making the whole system work more smoothly to accelerate the transition.
Okay, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Ancient history, cutting-edge tech, economics, jobs, communities, policy. It's truly a vast and dynamic field, so bringing it all together, what's the path forward look like? Where are we heading in this unfolding story of renewable energy?
Well, as we've seen, the progress has been incredible, especially in driving down costs for solar and wind and developing storage solutions like batteries, pumped hydro, and thermal energy. But challenges definitely remain.
Still hurdles to overcome.
Yes, making some of the less mature technologies like advanced geothermal or ocean energy economically competitive at scale. Continuing to improve storage duration and cost, carefully managing the environmental impacts of large-scale deployment, including supply chains for materials, and ensuring our policies and regulations keep evolving to support deeper integration.
So what's needed most?
Continued innovation, absolutely. Strategic, sustained massive investment, really in both generation technologies and the grid infrastructure needed to support them.
Yeah.
And consistently supportive, adaptable policies that provide long-term certainty and address those integration challenges head-on.
It sounds like we're still very much in the middle of the story, writing the next chapters. But despite the remaining challenges, the overall direction, the momentum, it feels overwhelmingly positive, doesn't it? The why seems clearer than ever.
I think that's absolutely right. When you weigh it all up, the benefits of this transition genuinely and profoundly outweigh the challenges.
Let's recap those benefits.
Okay. Massive sustainable job creation in new industries. Dramatic improvements in air quality, which has huge public health benefits, saving lives, reducing healthcare costs, taking decisive action to mitigate the climate crisis, which is an existential necessity, and significantly enhancing energy security. By reducing dependence on volatile global markets for fossil fuels, often imported from unstable regions, using domestic renewable resources boosts national security and economic stability. It's really a win across multiple fronts.
You used a phrase earlier that stuck with me. You called this not just an energy transition, but a human transition. What do you mean by that? It sounds like something deeper is changing.
It means this shift goes way beyond just swapping out power plants or changing the fuel in our cars. It's forcing us to fundamentally rethink our relationship with energy itself.
From scarcity to abundance, from polluting to clean.
Exactly. From thinking of it as a finite commodity we extract and burn, to harnessing boundless natural flows. It's also prompting us to reorganize our societies, fostering more decentralization, more community involvement, as we saw with CRE, and ultimately it's about redefining our relationship with the planet, moving from dominance towards stewardship.
So the story of renewables is a story about us.
I think so. It's a story of human ingenuity rising to meet a challenge we created. It's about perseverance, overcoming setbacks. And ultimately, it's a story of hope, a powerful demonstration that we can innovate our way to a better, more sustainable future.
And looking at it that way, it really puts the power, pardon the pun, back in our hands, doesn't it? This future isn't just going to happen to us.
Precisely. That's perhaps the most empowering message. The future of renewable energy isn't predetermined. It's not written in stone.
It depends on our choices.
Absolutely. The choices we make, collectively and individually right now, which technologies we invest in and prioritize, which policies we advocate for and support, how we choose to invest our money, even our everyday lifestyle choices and consumption patterns. The power to shape this clean energy future is genuinely, tangibly in our hands.
So, what does all of this mean for you listening right now? Well, it means you are living through one of the most profound, significant transformations in the entire history of human civilization. It's happening now, all around you. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest innovation in this whole story isn't just a smarter solar panel or a revolutionary new battery chemistry. What if the greatest innovation is actually our collective ability to envision and then build a world powered differently, powered by our own ingenuity, by thriving local communities, and by the boundless clean energy that our planet naturally provides? So keep your eyes peeled. Notice those solar panels popping up in surprising places. Watch for those elegant wind turbines turning on the horizon. Listen for the quiet hum of that geothermal plant. The story of our energy future is still being written, and you're living right in the middle of its most exciting, most critical chapter.